Hey, good morning. It's Tuesday and today we're gonna film some videos for Boya products and we're gonna build Project Goliath. Now, what is Project Goliath? I'm gonna tell you that in the next clip. So, enjoy today's episode of Behind the Closed Doors in a beautiful, almost white but no snow emerald. Okay, we're in the studio. Now, what is Project Goliath? Now, if you followed my social media stream, you've been well aware that I've been testing the Wacom Mobile Studio Pro and I'm very enthusiastic about the machine. It also runs Windows 10. Now, my experience with Windows in the past wasn't that positive compared to the Mac. But Windows 10, I have to be totally honest, it's pretty stable. I got it working the way that I want. And I also found out that except for Mac Fun, actually all the programs that I normally use are, well, also represented on the PC side. Seeing the way that Apple goes, we just hope that they will update the Mac Pro, of course, but in all reality it takes a long time. And the Mac Pro I have now is pretty fast. It's a 3.6 16 gigabyte 512 gigabyte SSD drive. That's insanely fast, and two D700s. So I'm not really going like, well, I have something that's really slow and I need something faster. But I'm also thinking about the future and shelving out a lot of money for a new Mac Pro. And I hope I'm wrong, but I guess that the new Mac Pros will actually start at around 6,000–7,000 euros for a normal configuration. So not the step in, that will probably be a little bit cheaper, but you don't want the step in, right? And so we calculated yesterday, like, okay, what would we spend on a PC if we built something that would literally destroy a Mac Pro? And I ended up at about 2,500–3,000 euros. And I went really nuts on the parts. So it's not a cheap CPU, it's not a cheap video card, and it's certainly not a cheap power supply unit, because that's something that, from my experience with PCs, a power supply unit is incredibly important. So we didn't actually bought the cheapest parts. We bought, I think, not the most expensive parts, but probably one step down. And then still I ended up at around 2,500–3,000 euros. So today everything will come in. I'm going to do some benchmarks on the Mac Pro. And then we're going to build the PC, and we're going to do the same benchmarks. In reality, however, benchmarks are just benchmarks. So I want to see how, for example, Premiere handles a 4K video, and then I want to see how Premiere does it under Windows. But that's not fair too, because I'm not using Premiere. I'm probably going to use Resolve. So, what is a fair comparison? Resolve on the Mac versus Resolve on the PC? No, of course not. A fair comparison is what you normally use. So on the PC side, I will be rendering a 4K file, and I'm just going to pick an episode of Quite Frankly that's in 4K. I'm just going to re-render it. And on the Mac side, I'm going to do that in Final Cut Pro X. On the PC side, I'm going to do it in Resolve, because that's really my workflow. It doesn't make any sense to do it in Premiere if I'm not going to use Premiere. I want to speed up my own workflow. So join us in today's episode, Goliath, and let's hope that the Mac Pro doesn't become a David, because that would be a waste of my money and a waste of my time. Now, because of course we're also gonna do a hard drive conversion for the new PC, well, I'm gonna be running on Paragon AFH Plus. I want to do a little bit of cleanup. Now, you know, over the time you collect a lot of stuff and instructional material, and to be honest, it was scattered around the drives a little bit. So what we're now going to do is actually copy everything to folders that I can easily find it back. Now, actually what you saw me doing in the previous clip is incredibly important. Now, I'm almost obsessive with finding my stuff back, so I always make sure that everything is in the right folders and everything is correctly organized. However, over the years that can of course change a little bit, because we do instructional videos a long time. So, yeah, some stuff got a little bit lost, and we're now actually getting everything back from the drives and putting it in one big folder so we can actually find back everything again in the future. So make sure that if you're just starting out photography, or if you've been doing it a long time and you have some time off, that everything is in the folders where it's supposed to be, because otherwise you look for ever for certain files. So also very important to do. So I'm copying now and waiting for the mailman, and actually for N week to film the Boya videos. Okay, so we're almost ready to film the product videos for Boya. Now, it's not really a product video, by the way, it's more like a test. So we're gonna test this unit. This is actually a receiver with 2 transmitters, which is absolutely awesome for smaller studios and productions. If you have, for example, 2 guests who both have to be wireless. It's a very good solution, because if you buy 2 Sennheisers, well, your bank account won't like you. And this is very, very affordable. So we're gonna see how that copes compared to our Sennheiser set. And we're gonna use this one. And this one will be an on-camera mic, and we're gonna compare that also, of course, to a wireless set. So what sounds better? And you already know, of course, that a lavalier mic will sound better, but maybe this will be awesome, for example, for on location or when you do an interview with somebody. Okay, we're almost done with the recording of the Boya products, and we had quite a laugh because we were actually trying to talk together, and Henrik was standing next to the camera, and it's incredibly difficult to literally speak while somebody else is trying to talk. And yeah, that was hilarious.
I'm decent.
Yeah, you're okay. So anyway, so we're now doing the conclusion of the video, and we'll upload that in our Quite Frankly series. So Henrik, are you ready for the conclusion?
I'm ready.
Okay, so I have to turn this camera off, and I have to put my mic on, and we're gonna film the conclusion. And again, you're gonna see this in the Quite Frankly episode very, very soon. Okay, let's start with some benchmarks actually for the Project Goliath video. So I'm gonna start with the Blackmagic disk speed test, and this is actually for the internal SSD on the MacPro. So let's start. I have now a 5 gig size file. And the internal SSDs on the MacPros are insanely fast. So let's see, we have 886.1 write and 962 read. And we're going to do that a few more times to see where it tops out. As you can see, they are incredibly fast. I recently saw a video from a guy who was comparing a PC to a Mac, and he actually told, like, okay, so can a Mac boot up in 45 seconds? No, it can't. And I was just going like, dude, if it takes 45 seconds, I think something's wrong, because this Mac Pro boots up in like maybe 10 or 15, and that's it. Okay, so that was the test for the hard drive speeds. Let's go to some other tests. The following test is actually Geekbench 4, which is used a lot and is available on PC and Mac. We're gonna run that now, and I'm gonna give you the results in a second. Okay, and the results are in. 3840 for the single core, 16,770 for the multi-core. And again, this is a Mac Pro. There we go. Late 2013 with an Intel Xeon E5 version 2, 3.5 GHz, 6 cores, and we have 2 D700s in here and 16 gigs of RAM. Okay, next up is the video performance. Okay, that went pretty fast. The score is 91,855 on OpenCL. Now, it only runs OpenCL because it's a Radeon card, a D700. Now, I also run the benchmark on the second video card with this result. Now, I don't know if it uses both video cards, but because I have to select both of them separately, I think it only tests one card. So I don't know how fast the system will be in, for example, a benchmark when you do both cards. But let's see how it performs with frame rate. And this benchmark you may or may not know, it's called Heaven, and it looks pretty cool to see, and it's also a good benchmark, I'm told. So we put the quality on a medium and the resolution on 2560 by 1440. So let's see let's see how this runs in our benchmark. Okay, it's now benchmarking, and the cool thing is that on top you actually also see the frames per second. But I'm not gonna bore you with that. We're just gonna wait until the benchmark is done, and it's supposed to be a real heavy benchmark. So I'm really curious to see how my computer works and how the new computer will fare, of course. Good news, good news! The mailman has arrived with the Project Goliath. So let's see what we got. Okay, I choose the Corsair case because I still don't know which case I will end up with, but this one really appealed to me. Love the colors and the look, and it's an airflow case, so lots of cooling. Now I have to be honest, it's been a few years since I built my last PC, so I hope I'm not too rusty. Okay, so what do we have for our computer? We have the power supply, a Corsair HX1200i. It's of course way too much, but this was what was on stock and it looked pretty good. And I know from experience that if there's a problem with the PC, it's often related to the power supply unit. But I agree, this is a little bit overkill, but you never know. The Core i7, it's an 8-core processor, new series. Corsair memory, 32 gigs. The Plextor hard drive, it's SSD. The Strix X99 gaming mainboard, because according to my son this was the fastest one that's still affordable and it was pretty stable. And the GeForce GTX 180, which should be an absolute beast, also from Asus, also a gaming card. And well, in all honesty, what we remember from our computer company, the gaming systems were indeed very, very fast and stable. So let's see if we can get everything inside this monster of a case. Step 1. I removed this part because I wanted a little bit more room for all the connectors on the back. This is a modular power supply, so we need a lot of room to see what I'm doing. Brain number 1 installed, the CPU. Of course, brain number 2 is the GPU, meaning the video card. Okay, mainboard is installed. Okay, connected all the wiring, so for the USB, for the power switch and the LEDs, and of course the fans. And now it's time to install the rest. Okay, installed the SSD drive. It's unbelievable how small this is, and especially when you consider how big the old drives were. And yes, I haven't built a PC in a few years, and to be honest, it's a little bit more complicated than it was. I'm still from the generation that started building computers and moving jumpers around for the CPU. Now, if you see what you have to do now, it's not more complicated, by the way, but the systems are way more advanced. So yeah, looking forward to powering this up and see if we don't have any smoke. Yeah, that's a joke, I hope. Okay, so the memory is now also installed, and one quick tip on memory installment. As you can see here, the DIMMs seem to be placed crisscross, and that's not true. What I did is I actually placed one SIM in slot A1, one in B1, one in C1 and one in D1. And this is actually also how the motherboard manual subscribes it. And make sure that you check this when you install DIMMs in a new motherboard or in an older one, because this can really make an impact on your performance. And it's the same with the MacPros, of course. Now we do have a small problem, or actually we run into a problem. Now when we had a computer company, when you ordered a boxed CPU, that actually meant a CPU with a cooling unit. And nowadays it seems that there are no cooling units on the box anymore. So I have to drive out to Lelystad, which is about half an hour drive, because that's the only place where they actually have a cooler for this CPU. Weird, because I thought that the i7 was a standard CPU. So in Emmeloord nothing, in Kampen nothing, in Urk nothing, so we have to go to Lelystad. Okay, on our way to Lelystad. And back to Emmeloord. Okay, installing this monster of a cooling system on the CPU. Okay, the monster has been attached. It's very close to the DIMM, so the second fan I put a little bit more up. But this is it. Now the video card, and we're ready to go. Of course we have to also connect the power of the power supply, almost forgot. Okay, ready to mount brain number 2. Oh my, this is huge. Well, it's supposed to be fast. We connected everything and we're now inside the BIOS, and now it's gonna be time to set this up properly and then install Windows. The system is up and running and setup is starting, so let's install Windows and see how it works. Okay, the benchmark is done and we have a frame per second of 35,882, minimum 11.2, maximum 64.7. So I'm very curious to see tomorrow what this baby will do, because I'm not gonna do that tonight anymore. It's now updating, and after that it's time for some relaxing. Windows is now updating, the Mac is still copying, and for today this is behind the closed doors. Tomorrow we will do the benchmarks on the new Windows machine and compare them to the MacPro and see if Goliath really wins or the MacPro is actually David. Let's hope not. So, see you again tomorrow. Bye bye guys.